Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 15th of February, and I hope everyone is having a great evening. Welcome back to all my subscribers and any new subscribers. We are zooming towards actually 13,000 subscribers thanks to you. I really appreciate the support, and please continue to come back and let's join the conversation. Okay, so tonight is Theresa May in Britain and the Brexit vote. There was a recent vote in the House of Commons as to whether to proceed with the two remaining items of the 7 that were put forward in the previous vote. That was to continue negotiating a backstop border customs arrangement with Ireland, and also that there would be a no hard exit Brexit. Anyways, so this new motion contained those two items, and of course this motion has failed, and mostly because of a group within her own party, the EIG, and this is the European Research Group, and they are the Brexiteers within the party, and they would prefer a no deal Brexit. Okay, so now what's going to happen is because this motion has failed, Theresa May is going to table another motion whether to go ahead and negotiate with the Irish about the backstop customs deal. And even in the Labour Party, I believe there was 20 members of the Labour Party also voted against the two previously agreed on items. So there is dissent within both parties, and this was what's going to make the whole thing much more complicated, because there's a little revolution going on within the Conservatives and the Labour Party. And now to cap it all off, Jeremy Corbyn has made arrangements to go over and see Barnier and Verhofstadt, the chief negotiators for the Brexit deal, and to talk to them privately. I think that is absolutely outrageous myself, to think that as the leader of the opposition, I can't imagine what would happen in Canada if the leader of the opposition decided to step in to a negotiation situation behind the back of the Prime Minister and try and renegotiate some kind of a deal, or even to intercede in the deal that's taking place at the time. And of course, Corbyn may be negotiating some of his own agenda, which we only can speculate on what that might be. But this is absolutely outrageous. I think that it's done on purpose by the European negotiators to put May on the back foot. Because, right now the situation is, if I was the European negotiators, I would be thinking that the Brits are just absolutely scared to death that this is actually going to go through and there might be a hard exit. And I'd be digging my heels in even further. I'd be folding my arms and digging my heels in and going, nope, I'm not going to agree to anything. You wanted the deal, you live with it. And so the negotiations are going to continue to be extremely tenuous. But what I can't understand, because we now have hard evidence, from the original Brexit vote and all the doom and gloom, that the probable outcome they're predicting is not going to happen at all. Anyway, let's go take a look at these articles, and I'll come back and do a quick wrap up. Okay, here we go. PM defeated by 303 votes to 258, plunging hopes of uniting her party around renegotiated deal into chaos. Theresa May has suffered an embarrassing defeat at the hands of hardline Eurosceptics, plunging her hopes of uniting the Conservatives around a renegotiated Brexit deal into chaos. The Prime Minister failed to win support for her EU strategy after the European Research Group EIG, led by Jason Rees-Mogg, abstained on a government motion because it appeared to rule out a no-deal Brexit. A defeat marks the end of a temporary truce over Brexit among Conservative MPs who had voted last month in favour of May's strategy if she could obtain some concessions from Brussels on the issue of the Northern Ireland backstop. It is likely to cause fresh doubt in Brussels that May has the power to win Parliament's support for an amended EU withdrawal agreement. The Eurosceptic refusal to cooperate with Number 10 underlined the difficulty the Prime Minister is likely to face in securing concessions from the EU that will satisfy them. In Brussels, diplomats said the result confirmed that the Prime Minister was incapable of commanding the support of her party on key votes, and that she needed to work cross-party. No one can take any good from this, said one diplomat. A quick guide to Theresa May's failed motion and the other amendments MPs voted on this Thursday. Theresa May has put a new motion before MPs that effectively asks Parliament to allow her to continue negotiating to seek changes to the Irish backstop. MPs are permitted to amend the motion, which will be voted on Thursday. This is the second time May has submitted an amendable parliamentary motion after the defeat of her Brexit deal. In January, MPs successfully amended the motion twice. The first amendment, supported by a government, was spearheaded by the Conservative MP Graham Brady and called for the government to seek alternative arrangements to replace the backstop. The second came from Caroline Spellman and it was a defeat for the government backed by rebel Tory MPs. It said House of Commons rejected the possibility of a No Deal Brexit. Now, I would remind you that this deal, this vote that they had, is non-binding. So this clock is ticking right now, and we are ticking towards the 29th of March. We're halfway through February, and we are no closer to a deal. And I am basically guaranteeing that you are just going to see much more waffling going on. And of course, this next story, Corbyn holds Brexit talks with Barnier and Verhofstadt. This is just unbelievable. Exclusive. Labour leaders to meet key EU figures next week as he seeks to break impasse and get PM to back customs union. Jeremy Corbyn will hold talks in Brussels next week with Michael Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator, as he seeks to break the Brexit impasse and persuade Theresa May to sign up to a customs union. The visit is likely to be highly unwelcome in Downing Street and risks accusations that Labour is pursuing its own shadow negotiations, undermining the Prime Minister's hopes of fresh EU concessions. Okay, so let's go back to 2016. Pound jumps after UK retail sales defy Brexit fears as it happened. And here we go. Brexit Armageddon was a terrifying vision, but it simply hasn't happened. Project Fear predicted economic meltdown if Britain voted to leave. So where are the devastating high streets, job losses and crashing markets? Oh my God. Shuttered stores and homeless people. Unemployment would rocket, tumbleweed would billow through deserted high streets, share prices would crash, the governments would struggle to find buyers for UK bonds, financial markets would be in meltdown, Britain would be plunged instantly into another deep recession. Remember all that? It was hard to avoid the doom and gloom, not just in the weeks leading up to the referendum, but in those immediately after it. Many of those who voted Remain comforted themselves with a certain knowledge that those who had voted for Brexit would suffer a bad case of buyer's remorse. Well, it hasn't worked out that way. The 1.4% jump in retail sales in July showed that consumers have not stopped spending and seem to be more influenced by the weather than they are by the fear of the consequences of what happened on 23rd of June. Retailers are licking their lips in anticipation of an Olympics feel-good factor.
This is what happens if Britain leaves. The economy shrinks, the value of the pound falls, inflation rises, unemployment rises, real wages are hit, so too are house prices, and as a result, government borrowing goes up. The central conclusions of today's Treasury analysis are clear. A vote to leave will push our economy into a recession. Within 2 years, the size of our economy, our GDP, will be at least 3% smaller as a result of leaving the EU, and it could be as much as 6% smaller.
Okay, George, we got it. That was George Osborne. He is the finance minister was the finance minister for England at the time. The Brexit economy post-referendum. Data defies gloomy UK predictions. Fears that Britain will slide into a post-referendum recession have been allayed after a Guardian analysis showed the latest news on the economy has confounded analysts' gloomy expectations, with consumer spending strong, unemployment low, and the housing market holding steady. Well, fancy that. The finding comes as the leading think tank toned down its earlier dire warnings of economic turmoil for the UK and its neighbours in the event of a leave vote. So don't you worry about a hard exit or a no-deal Brexit. You will have no problem. I think you will experience the same things that you experienced after the vote. So now I hope you really paid attention to those two articles about how well Britain did after the original Brexit vote. And the absolute doom and gloom, I mean, the bankers, the banking system, the head of the Bank of England was just doom and glooming. We were going into a year's recession. It was going to be absolutely awful. It was going to be disaster. Everyone was going to lose their job. Oh, what was that? Oh, everything's fine. You mean the stock market went up? The pound went up? Yes. And that's what's going to happen this time. And that is what the European a group in Brussels are scared to death of. And when you look across some of the unrest, you know, Italy's banking system is just an absolute disaster waiting to happen. There are banks being closed down left, right and centre all throughout Italy. There's some serious problems going on in Europe right now, and no, Britain is going to do well by cutting themselves loose from all of those problems. The European Union is just an absolute disaster. It was a plan that went too far. I think initially, you know, like I say, had they stayed with the sort of open borders between other participating countries so that you could travel easily backwards and forwards, was absolutely great. You know, it helped with work shortages in different countries, you know, as Britain was short of plumbers and electricians, and, you know, the Poles had a surplus of plumbers and electricians. Excellent. So they just get to come over rather than go through all that government process to get exit visas and short stay visas and work permits and goodness knows what else. So this really solved a huge labour problem within Europe. And but when we went to the money, when they changed over to the euro, it really took away. People saw how their national borders were just dissolving with the currency. And it's amazing, you know, you take a small thing, you think currency is a small issue, but having your own banknotes and your own postage stamps, that's another important identity, cultural identity marker. And people, they really identify with that. Anyway, it seemed to be a linchpin when they changed to the currency for whatever reason, and I'm sure the reasons could be myriad, but it had a resounding effect. And or maybe it was because that was the beginning of the real bureaucratic takeover and the bureaucratic dictatorship that has gone on in Europe since then, and the absolute outrageous rearranging of factories, manufacturing, financial sectors, leaving people out of the loop. People who lost their jobs really are thrown overboard. You know, it's like figure it out on your own. And, well, you know, that's fine if there's some kind of work to go to. But when there are literally hundreds of people competing for the same job, wow, that's a whole different thing. And, you know, when you think that the globalist idea was to make everybody more secure. And what's actually ended up is a few people have become secure and an awful lot of people have become incredibly insecure. And that, my friends, is why it's failing. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this information, please like, subscribe, comment below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, and we will talk to you very, very soon. See you now. Bye.